Hi, this is Regina Y. Favors with Favors Financial Recovery. So, this is a new series that I want to focus on encouraging people to address their particular financial setback on the road to financial recovery. This series is very unique because it offers psychological approaches to overcoming financial setback. You will always have access to resources online for particular financial concepts uh, specific to personal finance, and you can research that information. You can visit those types of sites that offer that information. But this particular series is going to focus on the particular psychological types of decisions we make when we engage in financial management. And sometimes we don't always engage in financial management. We make decisions, but then we don't stand by them. So, this is Favors Financial Recovery Psychological Approaches to Overcoming Financial Setback. This is an audio introduction introducing the series, as well as particular characteristics I want you to consider. So, the mission of Favors Financial Recovery is to offer psychology concepts and approaches to educate and encourage individuals to overcome financial setback. And a lot of times, when we make financial decisions and we encounter debt, or we are struggling with debt or credit or anything like that, we tend to have a survivor's mode. We max out the credit cards and then we just pay the minimum. Versus if we would have assessed whether or not we could pay the full balance at the end of the month, we wouldn't have to live in a type of survivor's mode. So I want individuals, people just in general, to learn that you can overcome financial setback, and I want to offer those types of psychology concepts that I'm familiar with, that I teach also in my English classroom to help you along the way. So, our core values, Favors Financial Recovery, the core values are personal responsibility, growth mindset, mastery orientation, ethical dealings, integrity, and recovery. And so, personal responsibility is something that I sort of understand to be that we are 100% responsible for any and all decisions we make as an adult. Sure, we could say that we have some responsibility somewhere in our high school years, but until we leave the home, in my opinion, we are not really responsible. We have a parent. That parent will guide us on our journeys. But once we leave the home and we make a decision to leave the home, and we're not necessarily, kicked out, but even if we are kicked out, once we reach a certain age, we are 100% responsible for ourselves. So I feel like personal responsibility is going to always be a core value. Growth mindset is specific to Dweck, and I do discuss Carol Dweck in the series. And so there's a difference between fixed mindset and growth mindset. Fixed mindset, you don't believe you believe your abilities are fixed, and so not changing, and you tend to avoid criticism, or you want to look smart in the situation. Versus a growth mindset is you embrace challenges. If you get set back, you just devise a way to overcome that situation. Mastery orientation really comes from the concept of goal orientation, and there are two different types of goal orientation, which is learning goal orientation and then performance goal orientation. And so I'm hoping that individuals take from this um, financial recovery series the importance of adopting goals that you can actually start, endure, and complete, and then also keeping in mind mastery as a particular long-term goal, that Management of personal finances should not be something that you do momentarily, right? Or by month or even by year. That it is something that you should keep in mind as a vision long term. And so with learning goal orientation, it's essentially learning for learning's sake, that you are intrinsically motivated to learn about personal finances and sustain your understanding about it. And then with performance goal orientation, you basically want to look smart in every context without actually knowing the information, or you know just enough, right? And that's how we tend to deal with our finances. We know just enough to make it, uh, you know, by the month or by the week or something like that. We treat our debt, we treat our finances as a whole based upon our jobs and how we are paid on our jobs and how we are living paycheck to paycheck, hoping and a praying and a wishing that we're going to be able to make rent, etc. And so that means that if we are still surviving in our understanding about personal finances, especially credit and debt, then that means that we're not learning anything. We are still adopting a performance goal orientation. Ethical dealings is very important because not many of us tend to be ethically driven when it comes to credit and debt, or our finances, right? We tend to place more emphasis on this idea that, well, I had the best intentions to pay. I didn't know I was going to lose my job, so if I can't pay, I guess I can't pay. But if we owe someone, we owe someone. Now, there are particular moments, that seasons in life where we will lose our job. Right now we are in a pandemic, and so we have a number of things that are going on that are contributing to our finances and not being able to fully repay our debts within the time given. But I do want us to adopt an ethical dealing when we are um, building a relationship with creditors, or building a relationship with any organization that's going to help us raise our credit scores or help us build a good, solid credit relationship, right? So ethical dealings is very important. Integrity, of course, is always important because it speaks to your character. Many times people sort of have a mini Ponzi scheme in their lives, right? They may not go outlandish and actually conduct a Ponzi scheme and be, fraudulent, but sometimes we can sort of rob Peter to pay Paul, and then try to take again from Paul to pay Peter. And so many of us have that sort of relationship with our finances that we're going to have to begin addressing. And then recovery is implicit in recovery is this idea that you are in setback, and that you sort of need to go through all of these different core values and address your setback until so you can get to recovery. And recovery means that you are out of survivor's mode when it comes to personal finance. That recovery is not the last step in terms of financial recovery. It's the step where you have overcome so many obstacles and hindrances to your understanding about personal finance. And then it is the step right before you are restored in life, where you can sort of enter thrive. So these are the core values for Favors financial recovery. So many of the topics I discuss in the series, Favors Financial Recovery series, are subject to fair use, and so there is appropriate citation referencing styles, and so you will see this Fair Use Act disclaimer in all of the series lectures. Also, here's a sample learning objective. So by the end of this lecture, students will be able to do the following. So define mate value, define mate retention behaviors, apply one of the mate retention behaviors to your current financial setback, and then design a plan that considers mate value in your financial recovery. So most importantly, every series requires that you define a concept or summarize the information or outline the different types of whatever is being discussed in that particular lecture. And then it moves to you applying one of those particular concepts to your current financial setback. So you know that you are in a current financial setback, right? And so you want to think about, okay, how does this apply to me? And then you go through the process of thinking and choosing one concept to apply it to yourself to see how it works in your understanding, right? And then, of course, you design a plan that considers that particular concept in your financial recovery. Keep it in mind. You just don't want to learn something without applying it, and then further designing a plan to ensure that you don't revert. So the learning objectives are sort of three-part. You try to understand the concept, then you apply the concept, and then you design a plan that will help you to sustain your understanding of the concept. And then here are some sample topics covered throughout the Favors Financial Recovery series. So the big 5 personality traits, goal orientation, I just talked about that in a few slides, mindset as well, parenting styles, mate value, mate switching. So the personality is very important because I talk about anxiousness, or under the big 5 personality traits, it is called neuroticism, and how oftentimes we make financial decisions out of some sort of fear or fright or anxiety. And so I go through the different high-low dimensions of each particular personality trait, and then I kind of expound on them in terms of what you should expect in managing your finance. And then of course, goal orientation and mindset has a lot to do with how you set your goals and the mindset that accompanies you being able to complete those goals. Parenting styles is something that we don't always think of. We think of it in terms of a particular context, and then we don't really discuss it anymore. And how your parent managed finances and how your parent doled out money to you via allowance and maybe created teachable moments is very important to consider when it comes to managing your personal finances. If your mother or father was a big spender, oftentimes you find yourself doing that because you tend to model what you see. And that's not to blame the parent, it's just your nurturing, right? Your home nurturing. And then if you saw your parent frugal, wouldn't spend anything at all, a cheapskate, too thrifty for his or her own good, you might find yourself wanting to do the same, or you might find yourself wanting to be a big spender because you didn't feel like you had an opportunity to spend money at all. So parenting styles is something that we discuss in a separate lecture series. And then mate value, of course, how you choose your mate is important. Your perception of mate value. You can perceive your mate as high value or low value. And so then the way that you dictate your finances based upon your perception of that person's mate value will also influence how you manage those finances and the vision of those finances. So mate value is something which might lead to mate switching if you feel like your partner is not making enough money based on a certain, objective that you might have that you might not have necessarily told your partner about. And that's why it's important to discuss personal finances, because I notice a lot of times in relationships, there's always one person who does more of the work, and sometimes that one person does more of the financial work. Sometimes that one partner in a relationship could make more money in contrast to their partner, and then you find yourself kind of spending more or feeling entitled to spend more because you make more money. And so finances, how you work through finances, will also be predicated on how you perceive your partner's mate value, and how that might determine your mate switching objective. So these are some of the sample topics covered, and they will increase as I go through the series. All right, hopefully you were able to gain some insight from this quick introduction to the Favors Financial Recovery series. Like, subscribe, and visit. Like the video, hit the notification bell for future videos. You can visit my website, which is still in development, reginayfavors.com. Email me with a quick question, reginayfavors@yahoo.com. My book, Overcoming Setback, 5 Keys for Entering and Exiting Correction, will become available on Amazon by the end of October 2021. It's already written. I just need to edit it. So be on the lookout for that book. Thank you very much for visiting the channel. Coming soon is my new book that I am working on presently and hope to complete by the end of the year. December 2021, preferably February 2022, and that is Favors Financial Recovery, Psychological Approaches to Overcoming Financial Setback, with some workbook elements. So it is it will be the book that will support the audio series, although I have developed the audio series prior to actually writing the book. So be on the lookout for this new book. When it comes out, when I finish, I will create an audio introduction to the book. Thank you again for visiting the channel.